Left-wing ideology has always been a load of tripe, but back in the day, there was always this at least half-hearted attempt to put up a veneer of coherent reasoning and argumentation. But with their incoherent ideology, which is really just a collection of feelings, they always get around to shooting themselves in the foot with positions that wind up being exactly the opposite to what they are supposed to believe. And very entertainingly, left-wing ideology never stops giving. A few years back, I read an article entitled "Women Are Stronger Than Men." Very predictable, that. The argument has always been that women have a higher threshold of pain than men do because of the demands of childbirth. I'm not too sure of that. In my dealings with women and girls throughout life, in any situation of a bit of playful roughhouse, it's generally a case of go easy, I bruise easily, or something to that effect. Anyway, I skim-read the article, and predictably it was all about pain threshold. It was not about women actually being ergonomically stronger than men, which would be an absolutely ludicrous assertion. Just a predictable example of leftists playing with words to put across a complete falsehood in pursuance of their ideological purity. And in more recent times, men can get pregnant, and as everybody knows, this is just a bit of code language in pursuance of total personal freedom concerning sexual deviancy, reinforcing the idea of total personal self-expression. So everybody knows it's just a game, and the gormless population just goes along with it. More recently, biological men without a uterus can get pregnant. Complete imbecility. Bruce Pascoe. I am an Aborigine, and the Aborigines had towns and villages and farms. Now, all of this has been exposed as a pathetic fabrication of history, including Pascoe's own personal claims, and yet he is still held up as an Aboriginal man commenting on political and social issues from the Aboriginal perspective, because at the end of the day, it's simply what people want to believe, which gives this stuff its total credence. I often make the point that what passes for politics in the post-war era in the degenerate Western world is actually psychology. It's not politics as in how to run a country or an economy, how to build dams, build freeways, anything like this. It is just the expression of total personal freedom to think, do and say anything you please. Anything which personally edifies you. So left-wingers are hypocrites, that's true. They're shameless liars, that's true. They're out of touch with the reality. But the real villains of the piece here, it's not really so much them. They're just doing what they naturally do. If you have a wild animal in your house, you'll toilet in your living room. That's just what they do. And that's just what they do. No, the real villains of the piece are the general public who actually aren't by nature disposed to think this way. They simply allow this stuff to get through to the wicket keeper. The real problem here is not that people are unable to see how wrong all this stuff is, but they simply will not stand up on their back legs and oppose it. And it's all the more alarming when, as I observed in the last video, that nobody, even its supporters, know how to stop this stuff, could stop this stuff even if they wanted to. My children were homeschooled for many years because I had no confidence that they would get the proper values in life from the education system as it was 20 or so years ago. But now, the school system is just a dangerous place for a child to be. They've said many times that the most dangerous place for an unborn baby to be is its own mother's womb because of rampant abortion. You could make a similar observation now about the classrooms, where I fully expect that although teachers that I had no confidence in 20 years ago to convey proper values will now take little Johnny and say, "Are you sure you're not a girl? Are you quite sure you're not a girl? If you do feel like a girl at any time, just let me know." And then when he says, "Oh, I might be a girl," a process is put in train that will inevitably lead to that child being mutilated permanently and unable to continue life as a girl or a boy, as a male or a female. And there's not a thing parents can do to stop that. And this is just evil. But in this video, I'm going to explore the psychology and the mentality of ordinary, reasonable folk out there who let this stuff pass without objection. I used to say, they're coming for your children. The gays, they want your children. And the reaction was, what nonsense. Of course they're not coming for our children. This will never happen. Then it starts to happen. And what do we find with our morally degenerate culture? The same people will now say, well, it doesn't actually matter that they're coming for our children. What problem could you have with that? Or that the Greens will force you to have cold showers. Oh no, nonsense, that will never happen. I refer to the people at large in our society who entertain this nonsense as sheeple. The activist class who drive this nonsense know exactly what they're doing, but the sheeple, they just let it roll over them. And isn't that a sad commentary on history? I'm not talking here about an armed uprising or revolution, but just the common everyday courage to stand up on your back legs and say, this is wrong. I have a religious concept that man, of all the creatures of this world, was designed to live life in an upright position. Man is bipedal. He walks on his 2 feet with his head pointed directly to the heavens, where his true aspirations should lie. Now, of course, people will say, oh, there are plenty of animals out there that have their heads pointed to the sky. One thinks of emus, kangaroos, penguins. But in actual fact, ergonomically speaking, the centre of gravity of animals lies towards the middle of their body structure, and their heads are never directly above their feet. And even the odd animal, like a penguin, who will stand fully erect on the ice shelf, in fact, lives almost all of its life in a horizontal position, swimming through the ocean. So what is the point of this fascinating theological digression? I think it all points to a profound purpose for which God created man and for which God created the lower animals. But in the context of this political discussion that I'm talking about, it's always fascinating to me to think of animals like, for example, the cat. And in political parlance, people often refer to a politician trying to herd cats, as in exerting some control or order among a disorganised rabble of people, each going their own way. Now, the cat is a very intelligent creature. The cat is not a herd animal, and it's very independent in its ways. Of course, the way most intelligent creature is mankind. And you would think that, as a matter of course, people would generally act like cats and act as fully independent entities, constantly analysing, thinking analytically about the environment they exist in and their relationship with other people. Yes, you'd think they'd be the cats in that political analogy, the hardheads, the people who need to be persuaded, who need to have things set out as being a logical and coherent way to proceed about things. But no, most people, as we know, are way more like sheep, widely viewed as the dumbest of all creatures. Ironically, this is the creature which most people resemble. And don't our political class, our left-wing activists, sure exploit that to the hilt. Now, I've mentioned sheep and cats, but there's another creature that humans these days very much resemble, and that is the lemming. We are in this surreal situation where an appeal to human reason, deceitfully, cunningly and flatteringly aimed at people's own perception of themselves as being highly intelligent, morally elevated, altruistic to his fellow man, accepts this appeal to his better nature, especially against the background of man's fantastic technological strides forward. Why can't we just replicate all this in human behaviour and create the perfect utopia of justice and equality? But these abstract, high-sounding aspirations have just lost all connection with reality, with Western society just navel-gazing itself into some kind of political nirvana. It's as if people are hooked on some kind of drug where their will to resist has just been stifled, where cold showers are fine. I'm starving. I'm cold. My children are at death's door as they're being groomed by sexual deviants. But none of this matters because we're saving the planet. Now, this is mindless herd mentality. But there is something even more disturbing about this. In the early years of the ideological struggle, I frequently found myself characterising leftists and their philosophy as what I thought of as inhuman. And I could never quite grasp the nettle here with a clear picture of just what this inhuman meant. It just seemed to run counter to what human beings are and are all about. And I never felt comfortable pushing this line, which could be so easily shot down in flames as nothing more than a bit of self-serving propaganda. But then, right on schedule, the left did my work for me, all the way from gender confusion to same-sex so-called marriage to transgenderism. The penny dropped. I had already decided that leftists were traitors to the human race in my colourful terminology, but now traitors to the human race and inhuman all nicely fell into place. If you don't know you're a man or a woman, you are a traitor to whatever it is you biologically are. And if people in the general population cannot define what is a woman through either stupidity or cowardice, more likely, then that is being a traitor to the human race and inhuman by logical extension. And so, lemming-like, we all go happily over the cliff.